Happy Friday. I'm not going to waste your time today. I have some start-sit options for Week 8 on today's show. Drop any additional players or questions in the comments. I'll answer them as quickly as I possibly can this weekend. But without further ado, this is the Anomaly Podcast. Let's start off with a quick little recap. Starting off here with a recap, of course, this is from last Friday's video. So, we always want to give you guys these insights, but we also want to check our work. So on the left side, you're going to see a lot of purple and a lot of navy blue for the Vikings and the Colts players, rightfully so. People had a lot of questions because they had a lot of tough matchups against the Niners and the Browns, or at least we thought. Both offenses had pretty good days. Regardless, on the right side of your screen, if you see a green strip, we got it right. A red strip, we got it wrong. Yellow, of course, it's in the middle. But overall, out of the 12 players we gave you guys, I'd say we got about 6 right, 3 in the middle, and 3 wrong. Of course, that's actually one of our worst weeks on the year. We're going to get back to that 9 to 10 right range. At least that's the plan. Starting off here at the quarterback position, we're going to start with Jared Goff. Last week was a wake-up call for not only the Lions as a team, but of course for Jared Goff himself. But I do believe both of those parties will get back on track this week against the Las Vegas Raiders. Dating back to last season, Jared Goff has averaged 22 fantasy points per game at home compared to just 12 points on the road. So 10-point difference in fantasy production. The dome effect is real for the Detroit Lions. But this season, Jared Goff has scored at least 18 points in every single home game, and he's also thrown for multiple touchdowns in home games in all but one this season. Aside from Maxx Crosby, there's not a lot to worry about on this Raiders defense, but this offense cannot look worse than it did last week. And I do believe, saying that Jared Goff is still in the MVP conversations, this offense and Jared Goff bounces back. But how about the guy that Goff was traded for? Again, it depends on which side of the coin you look at. But Matthew Stafford, this week he has the Dallas Cowboys defense. Very, very tough defense to go up against. But Matthew Stafford hasn't been the greatest himself. Of course, in real life, he's shown a lot of toughness. But for fantasy, he's been tough to start for our teams. He's only had 15 points twice this season, and he's only gotten over, I guess he hasn't gotten over 17 this season at all. So he only has one game with multiple passing touchdowns, and he only has one game over 230 plus passing yards. Until we see more upside from Matthew Stafford, it's just a very hard start, especially with the lack of rushing ability and upside of a guy like Matthew Stafford. So this week, when no teams are on bye, you should have another option. Plus, Matthew Stafford's going against this tough Dallas defense. As you see, Dallas allows the 31st, least points to the quarterback position, and they also generate pressure at the highest rate in the NFL. There's going to be a lot of issues here for the Los Angeles Rams offense. Of course, you want to start your Puka Nakuyas of the world, your Cooper Kupps of the world, but Matthew Stafford, with no teams on bye, I would steer a different direction. But how about Joe Burrow? This is a guy that's also facing a very tough defense in the San Francisco 49ers, and a lot of players have been sits this year in these videos against the Niners defense, but none of those players are of the caliber of Joe Burrow, as Joe Burrow has only really had one good game this season, but he has thrown for multiple touchdown passes in 2 straight games. So I guess that's a positive. I think this is going to be the biggest test to date, no doubt, as the Niners they generate pressure at the 5th highest rate in the NFL. There's still questions with that Bengals offensive line, but Joe Burrow is coming off of a bye. He's the healthiest he's been all season. He should also have T. Higgins back. I do think San Francisco is a tough matchup, no doubt, but my rationalization came to this. If Kirk Cousins and an offense without Justin Jefferson can cook the way that they did, you're telling me since he can't with a much more talented overall offense, again, they're healthier than the Minnesota offense. But regardless, I think that's my rationale here. If Minnesota can do it, Cincy can do it, maybe even better. The 50-50 player of the week is Kyle Pitts. So, of course, if you're new to these videos, let me know down in the comments what you would do in this hypothetical scenario with Kyle Pitts, or if you have him, let me know down below if you would start him this week. He's playing Buffalo, who is one of the best defenses against the tight end position this year. However, Kyle Pitts has been producing. He's averaging 12.5 points over the last month, about 7 targets a game. Kyle Pitts is playing the best football of his NFL career. However, he's facing a very tough defense. So 50-50 player of the week. Let me know down in the comments what you do with the Gator legend is a good way to put it. To go Gators. Moving over to the running back position, we're going to start with Brian Robinson, as he's facing the Eagles this week, and that's really all it comes down to. The Eagles are the second best rush defense, and they have allowed the least amount of fantasy points to the running back position this season. And if the Eagles get up early in this game, Brian Robinson's going to be really irrelevant, I guess, down the stretch of the game in the second half, where Antonio Gibson's going to get a lot more plays in that second half, where the receiving upside is going to come in handy more so than the rushing upside. So for a guy like Antonio Gibson, will get the playing time over Brian Robinson. Hopefully that makes sense. But again, maybe if it's a game, maybe if the Commanders can stay in it, Brian Robinson could be a sneaky start. But for this week, if you can avoid starting him, I would do that. But for his teammate, however, Terry McLaurin, I would say he's surprisingly a start this week. As again, like I mentioned, I do think that the Eagles will get up early in this game and the Commanders will be in catch-up mode, so they're going to need to throw the ball a lot in the second half. Terry McLaurin has scored more than 14 points in 2 straight games and 3 of his last 4. So he's proven he has an extremely safe floor, as he has also had double digits in 5 of his last 6 games this season. But in the Week 4 matchup, Terry McLaurin did have his best game on the year. 80-plus yards receiving. He had about 23 fantasy points. And again, overall on the season, Philadelphia has given up the 5th most receiving yards to the tight end position, or to the receiver position, and the 3rd most fantasy points per game. Again, to the wide receiver position. Terry McLaurin, again, with Halloween right around the corner, I would roll with Scary Terry. But again, I think he does have a extremely low floor in a game like this against a tough Eagles defense. Back to the running back position, we're going to talk about Chuba Hubbard, and this might be my most surprising take on the week. But I know, Miles Sanders, he was just reactivated, and he's going to be on the field Sunday, whether we like it or not. But if there was a back to start this week in Carolina, maybe you had Nick Chubb go down, maybe you had some other injuries in your backfield, and now you're left with Chuba Hubbard on your bench, I would actually start him this week, because 2 weeks ago when they last played, Chuba scored 16 fantasy points, and that's more than Miles Sanders has given us fantasy managers all season. So in 1 week as a starter, Chuba has outperformed Miles Sanders. Then I'll say this, for the long haul, for the season long, I don't like any of these backs in the Carolina, as Frank Reich just came out, the head coach of this team, and he said it's going to be a committee approach going forward. And again, that is the absolute worst case scenario for any fantasy managers that have a Carolina back. But for this matchup against the Texans, if you had to start one, if you're in a bind, I think this is a streamer start in Chuba Hubbard. As again, I would go with the running back that the team trusts more, and that is Chuba over Miles Sanders, which we're going to talk about now. As you can imagine, I'm going to sit Miles Sanders this week, as he hasn't looked his best. He's coming off of an injury. He's most likely going to be on a snap count. And of course, the report just said that a committee is coming there in Carolina. Trade Miles Sanders if you still can. That's a little side tangent here. If anything, at the very worst, keep him as far away from the starting lineup as you can. Keep him in the IR spot if you still can, right? But Miles Sanders, no doubt, a sit this week. How about the wide receiver position, right? We're going to start here with Zay Flowers, the rookie, maybe the best rookie wide receiver next to Puka Nacua. But Zay Flowers, he has hit double-digit figures in all but 1 game this season, and he's also top 17 fantasy points twice this year, showing that he brings a safe floor and solid upside. This isn't up my alley, right? But stick with me here, because I saw a stat, and you'll see it in the top right of your screen. But Zay Flowers this season, against zone coverage, Zay Flowers has thrived against zone coverage this year, and this week he gets the Cardinals. The Cardinals have run zone coverage on more than 80% of their players, where the league average is about 70%. However, so far this season, 88% of Zay Flowers' receiving yards and his lone touchdown have come against zone coverage. So do with that information as you like, but for me, this is a week where you kind of have to force Zay Flowers into your starting lineup, where I guess all of his strengths are going up against a defense that fit right into his strengths. They're going to play a lot of zone. Zay Flowers should carve up the zone defense, and Lamar should find him more often than not. How about this? I got some more for you, as we're going to start Michael Thomas. As again, I told you guys, I did a little bit of research, but keep in mind that Michael Thomas is playing the Colts this weekend, and the Colts run zone coverage at the highest rate in the NFL, 87% of the time. And Michael Thomas leads the Saints in receiving yards against zone coverage. So Michael Thomas has proven to be one of the safest plays all season, and with Olave now in trouble, maybe being in a jail cell this weekend, I think this is a smash play for me. I would definitely start Michael Thomas as he's yet again the number one wide receiver there in New Orleans. Simply put, Tennessee has their eyes on the future, whether if they believe in Michael Penix, Caleb Williams, or if they want to go the route of receiver in Marvin Harrison Jr. This is a team that has their eyes set on the 2024 draft already. They just traded away Kevin Byard, their all-pro safety. They're in talks to trade Derrick Henry to Baltimore or another place. Of course, those trade talks are going on right now. And they're also moving DeAndre Hopkins at the deadline, or at least that is the rumor. So they're getting off of all of these valuable veterans at this point. And look, I know, DeAndre Hopkins, he's made a Hall of Fame career out of making these subpar quarterbacks look good. It's just too big of a risk for me to trust Will Levis or Malik Willis to have a pretty good week and to provide a fantasy relevant receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. The player, he's still there, right? I think if he gets traded to another organization and a team, second half of the fantasy season, he might be a viable starter. However, right now, given the quarterback situation and the downward spiral that the organization is in, definitely sit DeAndre Hopkins until further notice. At the tight end position here, we'll finish off with two guys. David Njoku will start off here with the Chief, as he's coming off of his best game of the season. I mean, you think this is an easy smash start for the Browns because they have the same quarterback going into next week. They're also playing a Seattle defense at home, and the Seattle defense has given up the 7th fewest yards to the tight end position this year, and they have yet to allow a tight end touchdown this year. So Seattle is really, really good against the tight end position, and just given the quarterback situation, you really can't bank on a relevant week from David Njoku. Too risky for me. I would go with another option. For example, a guy that I would start over David Njoku this week is Jake Ferguson. And look, I've been on the Jake Ferguson train for a long time. I said he was going to be a top 15 option coming into the season, but I think this might be my last stop, guys. This is the make or break stop for me this season. As look, this is a guy that was averaging 10 fantasy points per game to start the year prior to the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks have been abysmal. Of course, we had the bye week in there. But this week, he has a very favorable matchup this weekend against the Rams. And if he can't get something done this weekend, I will be dropping him in each and every league that I own him in. I made the same challenge, and I threw the same challenge out there for Dallas Goedert just a few weeks back, and he answered. But my question is, can Jake Ferguson do the same? Can he answer and I guess have a relevant week for fantasy? If not, you can find him on waivers in each and every one of my leagues. But that is going to do it for today's show. If you guys enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Of course, we're on the road to bigger and better things. But again, we'll see you guys on Tuesday this upcoming week. Good luck to your real-life teams this weekend, your fantasy teams. I mean, NBA just started, so we really are spoiled as sports fans right now. A lot to watch. I mean, you can't really complain at this point in the year. But until Tuesday, again, good luck this weekend. Stay happy, stay healthy. We're out of here.